Oh, baby. The Tetairoa McMillan breakout is finally here. I am Pete over here with the player profiler, back with my top 10 takeaways. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with Player Profiler. Super excited to be back. And I had to start the show off on a high note there because I got to be honest, this was an absolutely brutal week for fantasy football. Probably, in my opinion at least, the worst week for fantasy football all season long, at least for my teams, right? And we're going to go over, what happened, what transpired, and some pretty shocking information after pulling more and more data, just from the games itself and just breaking it down. But it was a really, really brutal week. Let's start off at least with the injuries and everything else. And a lot of quarterback injuries. We're getting some updates that are kind of trickling in throughout the day today. But let's go over the first bigger names so far. Devon Achane, right leg injury, ends up returning, so he's okay. Bryce Young returned to an ankle injury. Michael Penix and Drake London are the biggest names right now. Michael Penix with unfortunately looks like he may have to get a total knee reconstruction. He's going for a second opinion, but it doesn't really look good right now, and that's super, super unfortunate. We'll see what that means for guys like Drake London and who else is going to step up in this offense. But Michael Penix now gets replaced by Kirk Cousins, and I've been a believer in Kirk Cousins that injury last year really was what torpedoed the rest of his season. So we'll see, another year removed from the Achilles. He did not look great in that Miami game. He's going to have pretty much the rest of the season to show that maybe he deserves to be a journeyman quarterback or a bridge quarterback for another team next year, or maybe this team, because Atlanta doesn't have its first round pick. They traded it to the Rams, and right now that pick is somewhere between 8 and 9 in the first round. So Atlanta is pretty much in a pretty bad spot, and Kirk Cousins might be the starter for this team for a solid amount of the year next year. Then you look at Drake London, wide receiver. He gets a sprained knee. Looks like it could be 2 to 6 weeks. Really unfortunate. Hopefully we can have him back for the fantasy playoffs. They did say that it appeared to be mild. Kamani Vidal with a quad injury, he ends up returning, but that didn't matter. Bashal Tutin ends up going down with an injury with the ankle, but nothing super serious there. Jordan Love leaves the game with a shoulder. Romeo Dobbs with a chest. Josh Jacobs with a knee injury. Reports came out today that knee injury is not expected to be serious, and he's currently week to week. So we'll see if that how he progresses. Aaron Rodgers with the hand. Now, it is his left hand, not his right hand, but not sure how that would affect if he has to get a cast on that or not. So we'll see, but he seems to be positive about it. We're going to see how the reports come out, but he's hoping to play this week. I'm sure a lot of people that are injured are hoping to play the next week, but we'll see how the timeline progresses. Jaylen Warren ends up returning. He did have an ankle injury. DK from Tennessee, Chimere, ends up with a concussion. Calvin Ridley broken fibula. Every single Tennessee Titans starting wide receiver got hurt yesterday. DeMarcado with an ankle injury. Pat Bryant gets a shoulder/head injury, probably the best game of his career, and has the biggest catch of his career, and then goes down due to an injury on the same play. Dylan Gabriel with a concussion. Shedeur Sanders comes in relief in that matchup, and does not look great. Though Josina Anderson seems to think that he did look good. Most of the world with eyeballs does not think the same, but that's for another topic, for another discussion. It'll be an interesting offseason for Shedeur Sanders, maybe dynasty owners and whoever drafted him. But that's pretty much the big roundup for the injuries here. I mean, it was just a terrible, terrible game. Even Justin Herbert left the game. Now Trey Lance only played a couple of snaps. They went into halftime. It felt like it was 30 minutes, because with halftime, and the Jags getting the ball first, you really didn't see Herbert. We didn't know what was going to happen for a while there, but he does return to action. But as most of us know, it did not amount to anything for fantasy. So it did not help us there. I do see some questions in the chat. Just want to let you guys know I will answer the mailbag at the end of the show. These usually run about 30 minutes. We have 10 takeaways that we'll go through, and then I'll answer any questions that you guys have at the end. So make sure you send them in, because I don't want to get to the end of the show and assume no one's got questions, and then I punch us out, and then someone ends up wanting to come in and ask a question, and unfortunately, we can't continue the show. So let's go ahead to number 2, and I want to go and look at just a little bit of a dynasty top 5 running back update right now. Keep trade cut at the moment has Bijan Robinson at 1, Gibbs at 2, Jonathan Taylor at 3, Devon Achane at 4, Ashton Genty at 5. If you want to see player profilers rankings, I think those are much, much better. Keep trade cut is really what the market believes the rankings should be. But a lot of times people go in there and they just click, click, click. If you're not familiar, it gives you a prompt of 3 players to keep, trade, or cut. And a lot of times people just click, click. They don't really think too much because they just want to get through that screen to get to where they need to go on the website. So that market data is not always the best, but it's always something good to use with people that maybe are not, you're maybe trying to get one over on. But most sharp players know that keep trade cut is not a strong indicator of fantasy value, and it's not always the best representation of the market. But my rankings, I would have Bijan and Gibbs flipped. I would have Gibbs at 1, Bijan at 2, Jonathan Taylor at 3, Devon Achane at 4, and I wouldn't have Genty at 5. I would actually have Bucky Irving and possibly even Omarion Hampton at that 5-6 spot. Reason being is the Raiders, look, Ashton Genty is on a team that right now shows no signs of, becoming much better in the future, right? Geno Smith, is kind of a lame duck quarterback that signed an extension. Pete Carroll, how at his age, how much is he going to be committed to a real rebuild, or are they going to continue to stick duct tape on this thing? And the offensive line is really, really bad. I mean, so they have a lot of issues there. I'll stick with Bucky Irving, who I think is with one of the best GMs in football and one of the best environments and cultures in football in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They constantly have lost offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator and have continued to be successful and a strong offense. And then you also look at the Chargers, who I mentioned, Omarion Hampton. While that offensive line is rough, they've also lost good players. They will return. Now, at what capacity? Rashawn Slater with that Achilles, that is really, really tough for a player with at his position. So we'll see, but I trust the environment much more with Justin Herbert at quarterback and the pieces and the coaching staff around Hampton. So I would actually have those players ahead of Ashton Genty right now. Let's go ahead and the reason I wanted to take that away is because, on today's show is because I think it's important to get a pulse check. And after some things have transpired and with injuries and everything else, I think it's important to kind of go over where we are right now with our rankings. Number 3 is JJ concerns. And you could say, is it JJ McCarthy concerns? Is it Justin Jefferson concerns? Is it all of the above right now? I mean, if anybody has watched this Vikings offense, Justin Jefferson is a captain on this Vikings team, and he seems visibly frustrated. And I totally understand that. I mean, they're not connecting right now a ton. And the offense is really, really struggled. I don't know if it was Kevin O'Connell's decision, or if it was the GM. I think it's decided. I can't remember. I can't remember the last name of the GM there. But overall, I don't know who called the shot to let Sam Darnold go out of the building. And this is one of those tough things in football where everybody is so hell-bent on the rookie contract and no GM wants to look stupid, right? They spend a top pick on JJ. He gets injured. And, are they really going to pay top dollar on Sam Darnold to keep him in the building? And I don't know. I mean, to me, if you looked at Sam Darnold after last year and you felt confident in your KOC and that front office and you felt confident that Sam Darnold could be a franchise quarterback, I don't care that you drafted JJ McCarthy. I think ultimately you probably should keep the guy that is a sure thing. And and maybe they didn't feel that way, and maybe hindsight's 2020. So I totally understand that, and I don't want to operate with hindsight right now. But I don't know who made that call, but JJ has struggled, and I don't want to. I tweeted out yesterday, this NFL season has been a pendulum, just back and forth, back and forth. There is not a lot of teams right now in the NFL that have been consistent on a weekly basis. I'll talk about the Denver Broncos. That's my team, right? You look at them on Thursday night, right? Thursday night football against the Raiders got absolutely slammed. Media members, Colin Cowherd, and tons of prominent figures are saying, are the Broncos going to draft another quarterback next year? What's going on? A lot of people calling them fraudulent, all these things. And then what happens? Next week, Broncos go out there. They have a great game. Bo Nix probably has the best, if not the second best game of the season for him. Maybe Dallas Cowboys might have been a better game, but I thought Bo looked great in this game. And now you have the same media outlets who are going to sit here and say, hey, these guys are for real. Denver this, Denver that. And it's the same thing with the Vikings and JJ McCarthy. I like to look at NFL seasons in quarters, right? Like 4 games a piece, right? Now it's at 17 games, so you get one extra, but it would be 16. So 4, 4, 4, 4, right? There's so much that happens, right? This is the pendulum swings. People get so high, they get so low. What I will say is JJ McCarthy, yeah, he's looked really, really rough. He had a small sample size in college where he didn't throw a ton of passes, right? He gets drafted. He tears the ACL. Super unfortunate. He does not look good. That's just the truth. Can he turn it around? Am I completely out on JJ McCarthy? Absolutely not. I trust Kevin O'Connell. I think there are pieces in this team and this offense that I think they can get things going and turn things around. Maybe not this season. And that's the biggest struggle and concern is this is an old roster though, right? So you have a young quarterback. How willing are these guys to wait for this quarterback to develop without there being some internal issues, right? So we'll see. But I'm not here to throw JJ McCarthy under the bus and say it's over for him. But there is valid criticism there, right? They said they were amazed at his progress and how good he looked in camp. And it's really hard to say whether, what's right or what's wrong there. But right now, it looks like it's trending the opposite way. Scott Barrett of Fantasy Points put this out. Best quarterbacks by hero throw rate / big time throw rate. JJ McCarthy, 7.9%. He's number 1 in the NFL in terms of hero throw rate, in terms of just, chucking the ball downfield and trying to be the hero quarterback, right? He's also the worst quarterback this year when it comes to turnover worthy throw rate, 5.7%. And you would think that this is leading to fantasy success, but it's just not, right? Justin Jefferson, since JJ McCarthy took over, 19th when it comes to points in terms of total fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. 11.8 points per game, ranks 28th right now. Justin Jefferson, 2 JJs here. Justin Jefferson, 11.8 points per game, ranks 28th on a points per game basis, 19th on total points over the last 3 weeks with JJ as the quarterback. The target volume has been there though, right? We're talking about 10 targets per game over the last 3 weeks with JJ McCarthy, right? So the volume is there. Hopefully, as more time progresses, right, we can get a bounce back. But I will say this. If you believe in Justin Jefferson and JJ McCarthy, you need to buy Justin Jefferson right now because everybody is going to be throwing him under the bus. Owners are going to be really, really concerned. And I'm talking redraft. Dynasty, you're probably not getting a massive discount on him. But for redraft, right, look at the playoff schedule for Justin Jefferson. He gets Washington the week before the playoffs, Dallas, the Giants, and the Lions. Those are all plus matchups, plus matchup. Not even just slightly above average. No, those are all bottom third, defenses when it comes to points allowed to the wide receiver position. So this is a great time to buy Justin Jefferson in redraft right now, especially if you can afford to go through some of the lumps over the next couple of weeks and maybe you have a cushion with your record. But let's go ahead and take a look or take a little bit of an ad break because, of course, we got to pay the bills. So let's hear a little bit from the Podfather.
Let me ask you a question. If you had one player to pick, one player that's going to go nuclear this week, who would it be? And on Better Picks, that's all you need to do. They have a free player waiting for you in the app. You just log in and you see, okay, who is the free mystery box player that I get to ride this week? So download the Better app. Use promo code PlayerProfiler. And watch your lineups cash. Maybe. Anyway, it's easy. It's free. And speaking of free, Better also gives you $10 of promotional funds no deposits required, and better has the highest multipliers in the game, 10,000x. It's crazy to even say it. It's wild. They let you win up to 1,000x on any 2 picks with their mystery multiplier. This big bang for your buck. It's simple. It's easy for beginners. So click the link in the description of this show. Better picks. Sports just got better with code PlayerProfiler.
Well, there you go. There you have it. Better picks. Go check it out. You heard from the Podfather, and you know that we wouldn't be pimping out anything if it wasn't worth taking a look at it. Let's go ahead and look at number 4's takeaway, and it's Kittle's back, right? George Kittle, is he back or not? George Kittle, tight end 2 this week in PPR points, 24.7 points this week, 6 catches on 6 targets, 67 yards. 2 touchdowns, 23.1% target share. And when we look at Brock Purdy versus Mac Jones, we know George Kittle is a favorite of Brock Purdy. With Mac Jones, we just weren't seeing that connection like we've seen with Brock Purdy. Let's look at 38 games with Brock Purdy you had and versus, the sample size of Mac Jones this year, right? We had 66.4 yards per game with Brock Purdy in his career. Mac Jones, 39.8. So almost double the amount of receiving yards with Brock Purdy versus Mac Jones, and a much larger sample size with Brock Purdy. Receptions per game, 4.6 per game with Brock Purdy, 4.3 for Mac Jones, right? Targets per game, 6 per game with Brock Purdy, 5 per game with Mac Jones. So that's a total of 1 more per game. That's huge in fantasy football. Gives you an extra opportunity, right? Volume is key. Now, touchdowns per game, 0.63 per game with Brock Purdy, 0.5 per game with Mac Jones. I know that might not sound like a big deal, but 0.13 per game is a solid bump up when you think about the sample size compared to Mac Jones at 50% of the games they play together, right? He has a touchdown. So looking at the rest of George Kittle's schedule, Panthers 23rd in terms of points per game to tight ends, Browns 17th, then he gets a bye, Titans 9th, Colts 28th, Bears 16th. He gets 4 out of 5 plus matchups is George Kittle. That's what he gets for the rest of his season. So if you're a contender in Dynasty, people are concerned about the age a little bit. And I've told people he just signed an extension. George Kittle does not look like he's going to be slowing down. As long as he's willing to continue with the hits and continue with the injuries, right? He's not going to hang it up, I don't think, anytime soon. So in Dynasty, I've gotten a lot of questions. Is he worth a late second? Absolutely. If you're a contender, I'd be trading a late second. And even if you're a team that's maybe not a contender, but you're in maybe year 2 of a rebuild and you're ready to compete next year, I'm okay taking a chance on getting Kittle as well. Depending on if you can get some of these younger assets, like, of course, Oronde Gadsden, if you can get him over Kittle, I would take a swing on Gadsden over Kittle because of the youth, right? But overall, George Kittle is set up for a nice end of season here as long as him and Brock Purdy can stay healthy. Let's go ahead and look at our next takeaway. Denver Broncos backfield, right? Who is the winner here? I think Jaleel McLaughlin is certainly the winner in terms of he is the clear backup ahead of Tyler Bidet. Now, I tweeted this out early last week, like on Monday, Tuesday, right? Before we got the confirmed J.K. Dobbins is out. And I said, Jaleel McLaughlin is going to be the guy that you want over Tyler Bidet. I don't think Bidet's role is going to increase much. We actually saw fullback Adam Prentice out there pass blocking on a lot of snaps, right? So that's really what Tyler Bidet's role is. He's a good pass blocker, and they put him out there to catch passes. But RJ Harvey is a better pass catcher, in my opinion, right? He's been more consistent when the ball's been thrown his way this year. Now, I expected this, but did not expect Jaleel McLaughlin to be the guy to get the red zone touchdown, right? I'm not concerned. RJ Harvey has been a very big red zone option for Denver this year so far. So because Jaleel gets that touchdown, I'm not panicking if I'm an RJ Harvey owner. Look, to be honest with you, I was not expecting a big game from RJ Harvey this week. It was a tough matchup against Kansas City. He did look really good in the passing game, though. 3 for 20 on 3 targets. He had one catch where he cut up field, and if he had not gotten tripped up, he would have made it into the end zone for at least a 20-yard touchdown. So better days are ahead for RJ Harvey, in my opinion. He's averaging 4 targets over the last 3 weeks. Now, again, 2 of those weeks were with J.K. Dobbins. Now you remove him. I think Harvey's going to be more involved in the pass game than what we saw before. I expect with a bye this week, Denver's going to do some self-scouting, right? They're going to look a little bit internally of what they can do to maybe get Harvey and this run game to be more efficient and effective. But I thought it would look like a solid 1-2 punch with him and Jaleel. The numbers won't say it because they kind of got away from it. There was a large portion of time where it was just really long drives from Kansas City that kept this offense off the field. Harvey and Jaleel had like 7 rushes in the first half combined. Not a lot. I don't expect them to continue to be that way. But with the bye, we'll see how things kind of shake out. The remaining schedule is not great. Washington's second in points per game to running backs, second best. Raiders 14th, Packers 9th, Jags 4th, Kansas City 5th. But the one thing when I dug a little bit deeper to feel a little bit more confident in the numbers and the matchups is 3 of these 5 matchups are giving up more receptions on above average per fantasy points data. So meaning with the average amount of receptions to running backs in the NFL for all the teams, right? 3 of the 5 matchups Harvey gets rest of the season, the teams he faces are giving up above average to receptions to the running back position. You can find that on fantasy points data. They have a nice data suite over there as well. Now looking at number 6, the Chargers meltdown. I mean, we got to talk about this. I mean, Justin Herbert was my quarterback 1 this week. Quarterback 1. I had Justin Herbert, the number 1 quarterback this week, and Justin Herbert was ranked 29th so far right now. 29th, ending Monday Night Football. He was an absolute train wreck this week. Now he's 29th because some backup quarterbacks came in to play. So some of those backups even had more points than him. I mean, just a terrible outing against a really bad Jaguar secondary. Now, let's look at the rest of the team. Kamani Vidal, RB 57. Lad McConkey, wide receiver 73. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver 110. He didn't even have a single catch, and he didn't run the ball. He had 0 points. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 33. Gadsden, tight end 24. If you combined all of these guys in PPR, they would not exceed 15 fantasy points. And you're looking at the guy right here, and that's not even including the Chargers defense, who got a negative points, who I had as a top 5 play this week, Chargers defense. But I started, Justin Herbert, Kamani Vidal, Lad McConkey, and the Chargers defense. Safe to say I lost my matchup for sure. I had Justin Jefferson in a ton of spots. I mean, not Justin Jefferson. I had Justin Herbert in a ton of spots this week, and they killed us. And, one thing about this Chargers team is they have done well in spite of the offensive line issues. Justin Herbert has elevated, right? But how long can you run hot with this offensive line, how bad they are? How long can you run efficient and play hero ball and just defy the odds? And this was just a game where they showed up really small, and that's probably putting it lightly. One thing I feel like I'm starting to notice is the Chargers do not travel to the East Coast for early games very well. We saw what happened against the Giants when they lost that game. We're seeing it now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just don't travel very well to the East Coast. And we've seen it now a couple times this year in games that they should win. So a really, really bad outing overall. This is not going to be the norm. I don't expect it to be, but as I said, maybe things are starting to catch up. Maybe the hits are starting to catch up on Herbert, who left the game early, right? I think better days are ahead for this offense. But I mean, if you started a lot of these guys like I did, you probably didn't win your weeks. The biggest takeaway for me is be aware and be weary of the Chargers traveling to the East Coast for early games this year. And I'm going to definitely put that in my back pocket for the rest of this season when making some decisions and making my rankings. Just an awful, awful outing. Disgusting. Houston Texans pass game. Let's talk about them. Number 7 here. Nico Collins, right? I mean, 7.3 receptions per game since Davis Mills took over the last 3 weeks, and he hasn't had less than 75 yards over that span. So, he's turned a corner a little bit. He's still not the player that we drafted, late first round, early second round. He was a player I pounded the table for. And I just didn't put in account, I guess, that this offensive line, while I expected them to be atrocious, I expected them to still get the football offensive coordinator upgrade. I expect them to still get the football to Nico Collins, and we just didn't see it all year, really, with CJ Stroud. Maybe Davis Mills can be a bump up, but it's probably going to go right back to CJ Stroud once he's healthy. I doubt they're going to sit there and say Davis Mills is the guy, but I mean, honestly, like, this team has looked better offensively with Davis Mills under center. I can't put it past. I mean, maybe it's CJ Stroud. All the hits are adding up over the last 2 years, and he's skittish and punch drunk a little bit. Maybe the time off will give him a chance to reset. But we'll see. But when you look at Nico Collins, this feels a lot like Jacoby and Kyler-esque right now, right? Where Jacoby Brissett steps in, and while he's not amazing, right, he's putting up gaudy numbers and chucking the football, and we're crushing it for fantasy with the assets around him. Maybe that can continue, but I don't expect it to, because I think Davis Mills is probably going right back to the bench once CJ Stroud is there, and it makes sense. I understand it. You don't want to crush Stroud's confidence, but I mean, I don't know. You got to sit there and think who gives you the best chance to win right now, and it's scary to sit here and think that it could be Davis Mills at this juncture of the season. But Jaden Higgins, back-to-back games with at least 42 yards and 4 catches, a really, really encouraging sign for the young wide receiver that they took in the second round. If you followed me on Player Profiler here, I have loved Jaden Higgins since he came out. I loved him before he came out. He was one of my favorite players. I had him as a top 5 wide receiver for fantasy, coming into rookie draft season. And I'm really excited to see what he does. Back-to-back games with 29 routes. We heard, this coaching staff talk up these younger players, these rookies, and they want to get them the football. They want to get them more time on the field. And it's looking like it's starting to pay off a little bit for Jaden Higgins, who's starting to build up a little bit of momentum here. Let's move over to number 8. And McBride beast mode. I mean, Trey McBride, 10 catches, 11 targets, 115 yards, and a touchdown, a 19.3% target share. Trey McBride has 7 touchdowns this year. That is more than he had in the first 3 years of his NFL career combined. 6 touchdowns with Jacoby Brissett in the last 5 weeks. And the nice thing about this is it's not Davis Mills and the Texans situation. Jacoby Brissett's the starter rest of the season. It's not changing. Not changing. So that's awesome for us if you have those fantasy assets there. I mean, Michael Wilson had a freaking career day as well. But I mean, really, really like to see what's been happening, and I don't expect him to slow down. He gets a plus matchup against Jacksonville this week, so really, really encouraged and love what I saw from Trey McBride, and love what we're seeing. I think it's sustainable right now. Yes, is Jacoby Brissett going to throw for 400 yards every game? No, but the one constant is that Trey McBride is eating with Jacoby Brissett. What are they going to say now, right? I mean, every single game with Jacoby, he's had a touchdown in the last 5 weeks. So Jacoby and McBride are becoming a really, really fun tandem. Let's move over to number 9, and before everyone freaks out about the title, Tet Breakout. The name is too long, Tetairoa. For aesthetics purposes, we shorten it to Tet. Sue me. I know him and his mom like to be called Tetairoa McMillan. No shade there. I just, for aesthetic purposes, we went with Tet on the graphic. But super excited to talk about Tet, who was my wide receiver one in this class. A lot of people had Travis Hunter as the guy to take in Dynasty streets. Some people even had Ibuka, and Ibuka's been phenomenal this year as well. But Tet breaks out this week. 8 catches on 12 targets, 130 yards, and 2 total touchdowns with a 26.7% target share. The target share has been where we expected it to be all year. 25 to 30% is what I expected. If you listen to my show on Riders and Fallers with Chuck in the offseason, I said all offseason long, 25 to 30% target share is what we are going to and should be expecting with Tet McMillan. He has maintained that all season long. And per Josh Norris of Underdog, right now, Tet's 6th in NFL receiving yards with 748, and he's on pace for 83 receptions, 1,156 yards, and 6 total touchdowns. I looked at it and said, maybe Tet has a little bit of a Marvin Harrison Jr. year where, 800-ish yards, around 5-6 total touchdowns. And, people might be a little disappointed like they were with Marv last year because they overdrafted him and redraft so high. But it turned out to be, it was actually a good season for a rookie for Marv. We're getting an even better season for Tet. And you didn't even draft him that high in redraft compared to what Marv was going for last year. He gets San Francisco next week, who just gave up 15 receptions for 183 yards to Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch had a phenomenal day. So that secondary is really beat up in San Francisco. Tet hopefully can continue. I know he had a little bit of a slow struggle bust the last couple of weeks, which kind of slowed down his momentum, where he's been having a really good rookie season. Went a little bit through a slump there. This breakout on a career day for him hopefully transcends him for the rest of the season here. Bryce Young has one of these games, it feels like every single year so far in his career with the NFL, where he has one big game towards the end of the season, and it kind of turns people to kind of being hopeful again for him. We'll see if Bryce Young can maintain it. Panthers are playing for something right now. I mean, this is a team with a good winning record who's in prime position to make the playoffs if they can continue. So we'll see if this offense can continue to build on this momentum. We'll see. Moving on to our last takeaway. Now, before I go over this last takeaway, make sure you start sending in some questions here, guys. We have some questions piled up already. I will answer them for the mailbag, whether it's Monday Night Football questions, whether it's rest of season questions, whether it's dynasty questions, trade questions, whatever you have, I will answer them. Start throwing them into the chat right now, and I will answer them once we get done with this final takeaway. And this is why I alluded to this being one of the worst weeks in fantasy football this year. There are a ton of players I'm going to go over in this, but the one player that sticks out the most, John Mechie, 3 catches, 45 yards, 1 touchdown. John Mechie, 13.5 fantasy points in PPR. You know where that landed John Mechie pending Monday Night Football in his total rankings for the week? 15. Wide receiver 15 with 13.5 fantasy points. Terrible. I mean, what's going on? This was a terrible week. Awful. Anybody that wants to tell you they were expecting it, they were predicting it, they're liars, right? Sure, the weather looked like it was going to maybe play a part, a lot of bad weather games, but the truth is a lot of quarterbacks played really bad. A lot of quarterbacks left games early. A lot of quarterbacks got injured and didn't return. Like, it was just a disaster, right? This was a very tough week. And if you were able to project that this was going to be how the week shook out, props to you. I, hands up, didn't expect it. Let's talk about some of the players and the backups that went off this week. And if there's any, possibility that this could be a trend going forward. First guy to talk about is Sean Tucker. 3 touchdowns, 106 yards, RB2 on the week. 34 PPR points. The encouraging sign for Sean Tucker is he was getting involved in the pass game. Now, I don't know about you guys, but what I've noticed is it's been Rachaad White has been the great pass protector, guy that's going to suck up the volume and targets. And Sean Tucker, if they have a lead, will be the guy that they use on early downs to run the football a little bit more often, or close to a 50-50 split on the rundowns. It wasn't Sean Tucker catching passes. We saw that. And I know we talked about Kyle Monungai. Once you take the tube out of the paste out of the tube, you can't put it back in. We'll see. Can Bucky Irving return this week? I think we're getting there. I think he's going to be back, and Sean Tucker might just be relegated to being probably RB3, because when Bucky Irving's back, I expect Rachaad White to be the complement to Bucky Irving, just given the skill sets. I don't expect that to be Sean Tucker, but all that to be said, Sean Tucker is definitely worth picking up and rostering, in case Bucky Irving doesn't come back. And in case this team says, we're riding the hot hand right now. Maybe they say, hey, Bucky's still not ready to come back. We feel like we're confident in what we have with Sean Tucker. We're going to continue to let Bucky rest up. Could be a possibility. Now, RB5, Kenneth Gainwell, 7 catches, 81 yards, 2 total touchdowns, 29.5 PPR points. I'm not running out there to go roster Kenneth Gainwell. I got to be honest. Jaylen Warren did leave the game early. He did return, but with the injury news with Rodgers, who knows what to expect. But look, Kenneth Gainwell, fine. If you're in deep leagues, I'm not going to tell you not to pick him up. But, I mean, you're not going to be starting him as your RB2 in many leagues, maybe a flex play. But Jaylen Warren is going to come back. So I'm not going out there and dropping, players that have maybe been slumping. But if you have an end of bench rotation at the end where you like to add and drop players, sure, pick up Kenneth Gainwell. But with the quarterback issues with Rodgers with the hand, we'll see. But I don't expect this to be a high-powered offense. A couple more names here. Devin Singletary, RB14. Tyrone Tracy, RB13. Singletary, 17.7 points. We talked about it a couple days ago. I said it. Don't let Devin Singletary slip through the cracks, right? Because I thought he was going to be way more involved than people expect. Everyone wanted to rush and go get Tyrone Tracy. Singletary has been okay for fantasy, right? He's not killing it, but I mean, I would much rather roster Devin Singletary over Kenneth Gainwell right now. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I trust Jaylen Warren to be the guy more than I trust Tyrone Tracy. And Ty Johnson, quick one, RB17, 2 for 61 and a touchdown, 15 PPR points. Ty Johnson was running back 17 this week. 17. Michael Wilson, wide receiver 1, 35 PPR points. Christian Watson, wide receiver 6. I'm talking about Christian Watson backup frenzy because Christian Watson was not viewed as a wide receiver 2 in many forecasts. Maybe because they had the Giants, you might have predicted it. And if you did, fine. I liked Christian Watson this week, but I wasn't projecting him to be a top 24 play. Wide receiver 6 on the week. Come on. 2 touchdowns for him, 20.6 PPR points. I like Christian Watson. Really happy to see that. Tyrell Shavers for the Bills, wide receiver 9. Do you know who that is? Did anybody know who that was? I did. I didn't think he was going to be a guy for fantasy, but who the heck knows who knew that Tyrell Shavers was going to be wide receiver 9 this week? Greg Dortch, wide receiver 11. Xavier Legette, wide receiver 12. John Mechie, again, wide receiver 15. Pat Bryant, wide receiver 16. Do you hear these names that I'm saying, guys? This was a chuck it in the bucket week. This was just a disaster. So I know people are frustrated. I'm frustrated, okay? I got hosed in a ton of matchups, but this is one of those things where you just say, man, I hate fantasy football. That is just what you got. You just sit there and say, I hate it. 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 But we're moving on. We're moving on. Week 11 is almost in the books. Monday Night Football pending. Let's check out the chat and see if we have any comments and questions to go over and answer here. We got a lot of comments in here. Kevin's in the house. SW Elbow, what's going on? Paul sitting here said, McMillan was on my bench. Started a Doomsday over him. I need 10 points from Aubrey tonight to win. I think you're in an okay spot for that. I think that should be a decent high-scoring game. We got another question here. Trade Henderson for Bowers. I had McBride, and my running backs are Javonte, Hampton, Kamara, and Tracy. Man, I would be hoping I can get maybe a lower player back with McBride for Henderson, but because I think Henderson, while I think he carved out a stronger role, I think Stevenson's going to be involved once he comes back. I think it should be closer to a 50 split at 50-50. I think it's going to be closer to 40-60. I think Henderson earned more touches, more time, but he didn't earn the lead back role per Mike Vrabel. Not because I don't think so, but because I just think trying to get in Mike Vrabel's head. So I'm okay making the deal, but I don't know. I mean, it depends what your record is. Kamara's got a great schedule coming up, right? If you can get by with Javonte and Kamara this week, Hampton coming back, I think I would probably rather keep Bowers. But I mean, if you need the running back depth and you feel like you need the help and your record's not great and you can't wait for Hampton, I'm okay making the deal if you're feeling conviction. Albert's in the house. What's going on, Albert? Dustin Wells said, "What's up, man? 69, they have Genty, Bowers, and Williams. What are my chances?" Okay, up 69 versus Genty, Bowers, and Javonte Williams. You're going to need to say a prayer. This is going to be closer than you probably want it to be. I hope for your sake it's not, but I think it's going to be closer than you want it to be. SW Elbow said, "Do you think Sean Tucker, Rachaad White have done enough to eat into Bucky's workload when he's back?" I covered this a little bit, but I think ultimately Bucky's going to get a similar workload than what he's gotten in the past. I don't think they're going to rush him back because what they've gotten so far from these running backs. But I think when Bucky comes back, he's still going to be that lead guy, and he's still going to be really good for fantasy. I think those guys might earn a little bit more touches, but I don't think it's going to be enough to pull your hair out for Bucky. Joe is in the house, said, "Could have sat longer like JJ could have sat longer like A-Rod did." Yeah, that is fair. Zach Linton's in the house. What's going on, Zach? Exclusive Evo said, "Would you drop Vidal for someone like Gainwell or Emmanuel Wilson?" I would drop Vidal for Emmanuel Wilson. Who knows with Josh Jacobs? This could be a 2-week thing. Thankfully, Josh Jacobs, they said no structural damage. He's a week-to-week play right now, but I think he's not going to play this week. And Vidal, with a bye this week, Hampton has a chance to come back. I think Hampton's going to get the lion's share of that role. And Emmanuel Wilson could maybe give you probably a couple more. But I think if I had to guess, Emmanuel Wilson gets more starter weeks than Vidal does rest of the season. That could only be 2. I mean, with Jacobs, maybe he comes back after missing 2 weeks, but Vidal again off the bye. I do think there's a chance Hampton misses that first game after the bye, but then comes back right after that. So we'll see. Let's see. 10 on the bench in the face-off chop league. That's tough, Zach. Joe said, have always too many running backs. Would you offer Jacobs, JMO, or Jacobs and Pittman? Okay, so trying to get Jefferson, Jacobs, Pittman, or Jacob. I would honestly rather go Jacobs, JMO. I know JMO has looked good the last 2 weeks, but to me, I trust that consistent play with the Colts with Pittman. So I would prefer the Jacobs Pittman side over I would prefer giving up Jacobs JMO over Jacobs Pittman because you're getting a lot of boom bust with Jefferson and JMO right now. Pittman's been very steady. He had a not a great week last week, but I don't expect that to continue. What's going on, Alex in the house? Let's see, Michael Wilson. Yeah, not super happy about that, but I'm glad you are, Joe. Would you drop Vidal? Answered that. Stash Bouchard or Neal? I would rather stash Brashard Smith, but I think Elijah Mitchell might be a sneaky guy as well. Andrew, would you trade DK Metcalf, Swift for Warren, Olave, and Rachaad White? Absolutely. I would do that in a heartbeat. I would if that trade's on the table right now, I would go hit accept it. And if it means you got to leave, go. But I would hit accept right now on that deal. I prefer Olave over Metcalf. I think they're pretty close, but I prefer Olave. Swift versus White, you can go White, but Warren is I give me Warren over Swift and White. I think that's a great deal. I would absolutely take Warren and Olave and White in that deal. And then Sicko said, not sure anyone's trading for Jacobs until we see the status of his injury. Yeah, it said week to week right now. We'll see how that that goes. Andrew said, appreciate you, man. Been a subscriber for a while, so appreciate you answering my question. Absolutely. Appreciate you popping in. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Player Profiler, we have a ton of things going on here, a ton of things rolling out, a lot of content this next week. We're going to try to get you ready to go for your fantasy football playoffs. I will remind you, if there's one thing you take away from this, it is trade for Justin Jefferson. If you can get him at a discount right now, that playoff schedule is awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, I'll see you guys next.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.